My quad's pretty beaten, so today we're going to fix it.
Whoa!
So I've destroyed a couple of motor fixing pipes, so today we'll walk you through how to replace the pipes themselves, and if you should need to, how to replace a motor on the Walkera MX400. So first things first, we'll remove the propeller. It's fairly straightforward. Undo the decorative cap and it will fall right off. So we're going to flip the quad over. You'll see 4 Allen bolts on the bottom of the arm. Undo all 4 of those and the motor will come loose. You'll also find that when you remove the motor, 2 little lock nuts will fall out, so make sure you're ready for that and you grab those. With nothing left attached on the motor end, we turn our attention to the 2 lock nuts you'll find on the bottom of the quad at the end of the arm and the hex bolts that affix those. Remove both of those, put the parts aside, and you'll also find one other small hex bolt a little bit further down the arm, and that attaches the lower canopy to the motor arm itself. While there's nothing particularly difficult about removing these little nuts, they are a little bit fiddly and the workspace is a little bit tight, so as I said, hopefully you're not using a shifter and you've got something a bit better than I have to work with, but you will see that as soon as you get those screws undone, the motor arm will just come away. So fast forward a few minutes, I've removed the stick-on LED and separated the arm from the rest. You'll see there I've got a few dangling wires. These just plug straight out of the top of the board. No special tools required, they're just plug and play. So pull those out, remove the frame mounting block, and then go through the process of extracting those wires delicately through the pipes. There is a bit of a problem. If you've bent it like me, it severely restricts the amount of room you've got to get that through there. Once you get those wires removed, it's just a matter of squeezing the motor fixing block off the end. You can try and remove the shrink wrap if you'd like. I had no success. My solution was just to wrap some duct tape around the aluminium arms once I'd finished the job. So now it's time to get our replacement parts out. So these are sold as singles. You'll need to buy 2 of them to replace 1 arm, and when you get them out of the packet, the first thing you'll notice is there's a little slit, a little bump I guess, that helps you align these in the mounting arm. So first and foremost, let's get this mounted on the motor mounting block first. So you just squeeze that in there and then we're right to reassemble the motor. So remember the 2 little locking nuts that fell out. We'll start by replacing those, drop them into the little holes, and then we can go about replacing the Allen bolts on the other side. Now if you want to save yourself some time, the little Allen bolts do run through the middle of the pipe, and you're going to have to run some cable down the middle of those pipes, so it's probably best at this stage to only put the hex bolts into one of those nuts, or leave at least one of them in very loosely while you affix the motor to make sure that you don't lose the nut. Okay, with that secure and in place, it's now time to affix the motor itself. Very easy. It of course only has 2 Allen bolts holding it in, so we grab those and we go through the process of securing the motor to the arm. Very easy. With the motor secured, it's now time to send those control wires back down through the pipe. I found it to be quite a tedious process. As you can see, I had to remove the hex bolt that I'd previously put in. So squeeze those down through there. Once they get to the end, you'll need to put them through the frame mounting block, and then it's just a matter of getting things attached back to the quadcopter. Admittedly, if you're looking at using the official Walkera heat shrink, now would be a good time to put that on the arm as well. I wouldn't shrink it until you have the other block attached on the other end, because you don't want it to squeeze the ends of those pipes together and not be able to then fit the mounting block on. As I said, it's a very fiddly job. It took me a little bit of time. The best way I found to get those through is to basically push them through all at the same time, but with the plugs staggered so that they weren't such a huge clump in a single spot. So as I say, now we've got the wires through that side, let's thread them through the frame mounting block and get that attached to our motor mounting poles as well. With the mounting poles essentially completed, everything's fully assembled, it's time to bring the remains of our quad back into it and reattach our motor. So just thread the wires through the same as they're threaded through on the remaining 3 arms and attach them using the locking nuts, the hex bolts, and the smaller hex bolt that attaches the lower canopy in exactly the same way as we took them off, but in reverse. Again, it's pretty fiddly work, so take your time, you'll get through it. It's not particularly difficult, but if you've got fat fingers like me, it's just a little bit frustrating. In terms of what order to connect those wires back to the board to, it's hard to say because it could be one of 2 configurations. Have a look at the remaining 3 arms that are still attached to the board. You should have 2 of each. So with this one that we've got unattached, you'll have 2 that are identical and then another single configuration that doesn't have a partner. If that's the case, just copy that singular one because that's the order your wires should go in to attach this motor. So the little locking nuts weren't too difficult. I found just putting a finger on them held them in place pretty well and allowed me to get them started before I put the shifter back in and use that to tighten them up. So it's at about here that the camera runs out of memory and I failed to realise it, so I don't have any film of the rest. The process was pretty easy. I reattached the canopy, reattached the propeller and wrapped the arms in duct tape for a bit of stability and make sure there was no vibration, and took it out for a test flight. This is the test flight you can see here. I believe there may have been a less noticeable slight bend in the arm previously, because since replacing it I found the quad to be a hell of a lot more stable than it was previously. Here things are quite gusty, so it does move around quite a lot, but it's admittedly a lot easier to keep in the air and keep steady than it was prior to putting these replacements in. So I hope I've been some help for anybody that needs to replace this particular part. I find it to be a particularly weak point on the Walkera, so it may be worth stocking up on them. As always, feel free to drop me a line if you have any questions. I'm always happy to help, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching.